Hey everybody. How we doing so far? Good, alright. There's two acts that I'm not happy about having to follow, but we're gonna see what we can do and get you out of here and home to bed as quickly as possible. Just got a few things to do for you. I want to hear a poem. I want to learn something I didn't know. I want to say yes at the end because I'm sick of saying so. I want to hear a poem about who you are and what you think and why you slam. Not a poem about my poem. I think I know who I am. I want to hear a poem about revolution. About fists raised high and hips shaking in a rumble like a rumba. I want to hear a poem about struggle so that when I open my mouth, I can step outside myself. And because every second matters, I want to hear long poems and short poems about time and its limits. I want to hear a poem that attacks the status quo, that attracts the claps, the cats, the fattest flows, that makes the crowd pass a hat and pack my cap with a stack of dough. I want to hear a poem, I want to feel a poem, I want to read a poem that'll make this crowd yell, ho! Oh! Thank you. I want to hear a poem that'll make poetry famous. I want to read a poem that will burn my initials into the sun. I want to write a poem sitting in the middle of a burning building, standing in the fast lane of the freeway, falling from the Empire State Building. I don't want to bury poetry. I want to blow it up. I don't want to dangle it on my knee like a retarded child with beautiful eyes. I want to throw it off the cliff into the icy seas below, and I want to see if that motherfucker will swim for its life. A poet is one who writes verses, and one who does not write verses. A poet is one who throws off shackles, and one who puts shackles on himself. A poet is one who believes, and one who cannot bring himself to believe. A poet is one who tells lies, and one who has been told lies. A poet is one who is given to fall, and one who raises himself up. A poet is one who tries to leave, and a poet is one who cannot. I have a dear friend who keeps telling me that art is ultimately about loneliness. After all, he says, solitude is the profoundest fact of the human condition, and man is the only being who knows he is alone. Kierkegaard tells us that the sum total of everything we do in life is merely an attempt to distract ourselves from the fact that we're dying. We're merely trying to distract ourselves from the messy architecture of the self, a sense of loneliness and pointlessness and loss that pervades our every waking, thinking moment. I'm beginning to come around to this, I'm starting to say, but another dear friend chimes in. Quantum physics tells us that nothing ever really touches. There is no contact in the universe. There's only movement and change. This is a terrifying notion given our attempts to make contact with one another. I'm beginning to come around to this as well. It is, after all, a difficult balance to maintain, and few are able to do so without the aid of medication, and or years of therapy, and or large doses of broadcast television. We feel our loneliness to be painful, and we yearn to escape from behind the wall of our individual identities into a condition in which we can be more unified with the world outside of ourselves. We are desperate to communicate, and so we put forth the effort to remain active, normal, and determined, even as a shadow encroaching from the depths threatens our efforts to confront each day by day. The shadow presents itself as a realness regarding the rottenness of the world in general and the rottenness of our own lives in particular. But this realness is merely a mask for the true essence of the beast, which is an overwhelming estrangement from humanity. The more persuaded you are of your unique access to this realness, the more convinced you are that only you can see the shadow, the more afraid of engaging with the world you become. And the less you engage with the world, the more perfidiously happy-faced the rest of humanity seems for continuing to engage with it. How could we not feel estranged? Indeed, how not? All of a sudden, I realized how very hungry I was to construct and inhabit an imaginary world. This hunger felt like a loneliness of which I'd been dying. I thought that I needed to cure myself in order to fit in with the world. But I didn't need curing. The world didn't either. The only thing that did need curing was my understanding of my place in it. Without that understanding, without a sense of belonging to the world, it was impossible to thrive. even in an imagined one. There are places and moments in which we are so alone that we see the world entire. You are the artist. Surely you've at least attempted to describe this imaginary world. Yes. Yes. Like being in an empty room that is nevertheless filled with unspoken words. Like walking into a labyrinth, groping through a tunnel. Like wading through a deep river at dawn. Like painting light on the wall of a house. Like eternal graffiti in the heart of everyone. Like grappling with an unseen being. Like a softer body that we slip into to wear for a larger experience of life. Like sitting in the theater before the play has begun, waiting for the characters to appear. Like taking the whole world in for repairs, and then putting it back together again, piece by bloody piece. Like all the eagles of the universe flocking together to sing in a congress of birds. Like trying to grasp consciousness, define the ineffable. Like being alone in a darkened room, feeling your way. You have to rearrange the furniture in the dark. And when it's all in place, the lights will come on. I am an artist. I wish to create moments of beauty, terror, love, and belief in the innate human potential for change. I want the daily challenge of clarity and articulation. I wish my life to be scarred by poetry. Art is life. This is the first characteristic of art. It's the only starting point, and there is nothing else truly fundamental. Art is life. It's about bloody-mindedness. You may find success, but it's not about making it, never for money, always for love. Some will say, you are a fool, for you have not provided yourself with an alternative. You might say, I see nothing else worth my time, which I think is a rather strengthening alternative. But in the end, it's just you and the art. It requires not tidiness, not paint by numbers intellectuality, but immediacy and courage. The second characteristic of art is that it reveals universe. Show business does not do this, the stock market does not. It's not expected, nor is it required. Poems, drama, novels, sculptures, painting, these face the rigorous necessity of revealing universe. It's the job, the responsibility, if you will, of the artist. A third thing that art does is awaken the spirit. By awakening the spirit, we mean that somewhere in the course of engaging with the work of art, a light goes on in the viewer, and he is illuminated, awakened, enlightened, engaged, turned, changed. Art that awakens the spirit is not common, and it is difficult to find. And yet occasionally the elements conspire to make our work relevant, and to everyone's great surprise, there's an eruption of something primal. Art is life. It's frightening, funny, sordid, and true. It's the stuff of the soul. It's the counterbalance to the reasonable view of the world, and thus it's likely to be despised. Cherish it, rather than despise it. That is the work of the artist. I want no part of it. I've spent the past 6 hours counting the holes in the ceiling, trying to feel the effects of gravity on my skin, and wondering how long I could stay like this without it bothering anyone. blood pulses in my head again and again and again. My dear friends, I apologize if in these few short hours of our time together I say nothing. Your presence here is a gift, truly, and I applaud your efforts to arrive here. So if I say nothing, it's no reflection of my opinion of you, it's simply that I have nothing to say. But I have accepted this, and in doing so, I've escaped my vanity and my pride. I cultivate in action like a greenhouse flower. I dissent from life, and am proud of it. I don't let outside events affect me in any way. Who else could say so much? To shrug off all duties, even those not assigned to us. To repudiate all homes, even those that were not ours. To be something, anything that does not feel the weight of the rain outside. If only our lives were an eternal standing by the window, watching the same moment of twilight paint the curve of the hills. We could remain that way forever, beyond forever, without committing another action, without our pallid lips sitting another word. My happiest moments are those in which I think nothing, want nothing, and dream nothing. I savor the joy of nothing. The freedom of no expectations, no obligations, no appointments. The world does not expect me to produce, and I do not. And I do not miss that weight. If our jobs are expendable, if the entire world runs fine without us, all of us, if we can indeed live our entire lives without getting out of bed in the morning, then why on earth should I get up to confront the long, lonely day? What on earth could possibly make me want to be conscious or feel a blessed thing? I say, abdicate from life, so as not to abdicate from yourself. I say, find your personality by losing it. I say, make nothing. No trouble, no fuss, no objects, and no art. No art. You see, the further we advance, the more we realize that when confronted with the realities of life, all the fictions of literature and art pale into insignificance. They are dreams from which we awaken. They are not memories and nostalgic longings for which we can build a second life. They're just shadows and fog, mist. We are capable of violent and consuming, futile impulses, both good and bad, noble and vile, but never of a sentiment that continues, never of an emotion that endures. All I ever wanted was to pull apart the day and put the pieces back together in my own way. But whenever speaking of anything that mattered, I was always aware of the remainder of the insoluble problem that words left behind, as if I was constantly failing that simple problem of long division. Soon the great works that I was writing were left behind, suspended, or abandoned to work on things less important to me. Even in simple matters, what food to wear, what clothing to buy, what to do with my friends on a weekend, I was hesitant and uncertain. This indecision seemed to shear the edges off of time until the days passed by me so quickly, and I didn't know what to do to stop them. To realize that who we are is not ours to know, but what we want is not what we wanted, nor perhaps what anyone ever wanted for us. To realize all this in every moment and feel it in every emotion. To face a blank page takes courage, yes. But to face a blank life, yet to be written, it takes more. That takes grit. And so my self-imposed exile from life's actions and objectives and my attempt to isolate myself completely led me back precisely to that which I had tried to escape. I didn't want to feel life or touch anything real, for my experience of my temperament and contact with the world had taught me to avoid that contact. And if it were possible to cut myself off completely, then my sensibility would pose no problem whatsoever.
But this total isolation cannot be achieved. However little I do, I still move. However little I act, I still breathe. Soon the tiniest things began to remind me of the life that was. And without the ability to forget completely, I was soon drawn back to my nature and my wants. And so, after all the freedom and joy of exemption, no obligations, I was once again all alone. A poet is one who tries to leave. I was at the height of my labored duality, my confusion and despair. I was trying to find a new beginning, a single step, destination, struggling to imagine a new way. I fell into deep sleep. A reverie, perhaps. I imagined all those poets, lost, wasted, exposed, clinging. I dreamt of shining idols. I prayed for a visit of broader vision. And she came to me in my sleep.
I give you 9 viewpoints, that still wasn't enough. You still want to give up? Well, here, calling your bluff. Hey, boogie, flip the script in a new style. How does new shit that you've seen in a little while? Yeah, I'm bragging. Have you seen me on the replay? Up, down, left, right, running all around the way. Teaching all my technique from bus kind of Santa Fe. Big up to Easy D, my DJ. I like it best when the metaphors are hypercharged and the concept is no holds barred. Don't be afraid of the avant-garde. If we take it too far, I'll send you a fucking postcard. New lines, new rhymes, it's a season. You gonna breed them or just read them? Don't wanna work hard, build up your repertoire. Art's gonna be hard, that's how it gets large. Don't wait till you got money to show. Don't wait till your ducks are lined up in a row. Work with what you've got right now. Commit to it like you made a vow.
Yes, I know this is odd, and Bogart, you're asking now the regular back to my apartment. What can I say? It's my dream, my shelter.
Now why is it so acceptable to say you're really lying? You think it's unacceptable, I think it's asinine. I was hoping you were dedicated, it's really something to say. The drawing pressure of movie shoots just get in the way. The thought of food is far from handling something that excites it. Your work's only gonna be as big as the risk that ignites it. If you're not needing forward, build energy and terror, you can bet that the crowd's gonna know there's no heart there. Freedom! Or would you rather have security? The risk on that should probably fade to obscurity. Now every great journey begins with disorientation. Cast conformity behind you and begin emulation. Don't wait! Work with what you got right now. Work with who you know right now. Work it where you are right now. Commit to it like you made a vow. Don't wait till you got money to show. Don't wait till your dogs all end up in a row. You gotta get started right now, even if you don't know how. We're gonna take it back now with a little bit of free verse. A little bit of Lawrence Ferlinghetti, if you will. Oh, lend me your ears, oh, lend me your tears, all your finger-popping nannies of poetry, gifted with giftlessness. All you poets writing poetry about poetry, you deconstructed language poets, on far creeped out cut-up poets, you pre-stressed concrete poets, groaning with graffiti, you pay toilet poets, you cunnilingual poets, you A-train swingers who never swing on perches, you idolists and realists, self-occulting super surrealists, you New York slammers and gangster rappers, you bedroom visionaries and closet adjunct propagators, you groucho Marxist poets, you leisure class comrades who sleep till noon and talk about the working class proletariat. You poetry workshop poets, you masters of the Saul and haiku in the boondock heart of America. All you weary professors of poesy. You poetry critics drinking the blood of the poet. You poetry police. You lovers of suicided poets. You dead mothers of poetry. You Zen brothers of poetry. You hear me? Don't wait till your ducks will end up in a row. Don't wait till you got money to blow. Work what you got right now. Work with who you know right now. Work it where you are, bust town. Commit to it like you made a vow. Don't wait till you got what you need. Don't wait till you should succeed. Do it now, even if you have to bleed. Come on, it's your turn now. Take the lead. Don't wait. This is Bogart signing off. Yeah, baby! pictures!
I just realized the stakes are myself. Art is one of our most important means of understanding the world around us. We process our experiences and recreate them in simplified form. Often this brings revelations that we could not come to through sheer reason. So, what is art not? Well, as I've described it, art is not about communication. It's a way of making sense of the world and coming to new understandings, and not simply a way of communicating some understanding that you already hold. If you're trying to demonstrate some already known idea or fact, it's called illustration. And illustration, no matter how sophisticated, is always superficial because it's secondary. The idea comes first and the illustration explicates it. Nice, but tedious. Creating a work of art should be a process of exploration. As one great artist once said to me, "If I knew how it was going to come out, young man, I wouldn't even bother to paint it." When we say creativity, we refer to a heightened state of imaginative awareness that allows us to enter new realms of discovery. Another word for this state is play. As children, play is our most important means of processing the information of experience. That's why children play so damn much. It simplifies the world's complexities into easily understood and useful information. So, as children, we try a lot of crazy stuff at random, and we're delighted to discover that pushing a crayon or a marker on a piece of paper leaves a mark. Physically, at its most basic level, all art is mark making. Before this, the blank surface is an undefined void. Our marks give it form, structure, and space. This happens accidentally at first, but eventually we learn to structure the space consciously, to break the void up into definable chunks. Being human, the most important things in our lives are other people. So we populate the void with them. This is mommy. This is Poppy. And this is me. We create a new world inside the void, a simplification of the physical world in which we live. Each child is God, creating his own universe. But in art, we're not simply recreating the world around us, we're also manifesting the secret world inside us. Art turns us inside out, revealing our hopes, yes, our fears, and everything we try to keep hidden. When you're creating a work of art, the physical world fades away as you step into this new reality. Focusing yourself like this condenses you into a super concentrated, ultra vivid reality, an intense and absorbing living world that is the focused essence of your experience of the real world. But it's so easy for everything to go horribly wrong. There's so much to screw us up: timidness, dishonesty, fear, pretension. Turning yourself inside out is scary stuff. And a lack of technical ability can add to this fear, but it does not have to. Technical mastery of one's craft does not a great artist make. Craft is really just a matter of pride and respect for your medium. So it's not a matter of learning to draw, as many people think it is. It's a matter of allowing yourself to boil in the intensity of your experiences, condensing, compressing, and clarifying them. Your art will be great when you can successfully focus your experiences to reveal some new understanding of the universe that has previously eluded us. And the more clearly focused, vivid, and original this work of art is, the more universe it reveals, and the higher the quality. So, ignore your lack of technical ability. Vow to put the skills you do have to use now and pick up more along the way. The only quality that you truly need is the ability to open yourself with honesty and pluck out the truth. Speech is my hammer. Bang the world into shape, not let it fall. My restlessness is my nemesis. It's hard to really chill and sit still, committed to the page. I write a rhyme, sometimes don't finish for days. Sons of Whitman, sons of Poe, sons of Lorca and Rimbaud, or their dark daughters, poets of another breath. Poets of other visions. Who among you still speaks of revolution? Who among you still unscrews the locks from the doors in this revisionist decade? Your lives are in your own hands still. Make them flower, make them sing. Our constitutional Congress of the body still to be convened to seize back the state, the subjective state, from those who have subverted it. The Arab telephone of the avant-garde is broken down, and I speak to you now from another country. Do not turn away in your public solitudes, poets of other breath, poets of other vision, separate, lonesome visions, fierce, untamed, uncornered, recalcitrant visions. We will not be the first. We will not be the first. We will not be the first. But we need you now. It begins as a lump in the throat, like a homesickness. You go to a far secluded place to be alone, mentally and physically. Or you go to a coffee shop to be surrounded by activity. You put on familiar trappings, pajamas perhaps, in my case, a black t-shirt, beat-up jeans, and one of two button-down shirts, which is exactly alike in every way, shape, and form except the color. Some people think these are the only clothes I own. The point is to find a space and make a home for yourself and for your work. That done, you start, as always, with the same question: how to begin? The answer, as always, start as you mean to go on. Well, of course. The first try is always impossible because beginning to work requires a peculiar internal state that ordinary life does not induce. If you were a Zulu warrior, banging on your shield with your spear for a couple of hours with a couple of hundred other Zulu warriors all banging their shields with their spears for a couple of hours, you might be able to work up the energy to begin. If you were an Aztec maiden who knew a couple of months in advance that on a certain morning the priests were going to toss you into a hot volcano, and you spent those months undergoing a series of bizarre and intense purification rituals and drinking dubious liquids, you might, when the time came, be ready to begin. Words may lie beyond the horizon, but for the moment they're utterly inaccessible. And they may remain so for hours, days, weeks. Sometimes I'm disturbed by the pause, disquieted by the foreboding that words may never come, or that if they do, they'll fail, or that the pause might go on and on and on. More often, though, I find myself growing calmer, more relaxed, spreading out and breathing more deeply because I'm aware of time and its motion. I feel myself wrapped inside it, dragged, gliding along. And there are long periods of inactivity, just sitting in a room, thinking, listening to music, bouncing a rubber ball, mind navigating, constantly focusing on the half-seen and the half-formed. I've learned that this, too, is part of the job, always looking around the corner for that which has just eluded you, constantly struggling with thoughts that you don't yet understand. Eventually, though, you lay down a line of words. The line of words is a wood carver's gouge, a miner's axe, a surgeon's probe. It digs a path, and you follow. Is this another dead end, or have you finally found the real subject? You will know tomorrow, perhaps, or this time next year, if you're lucky. A joke. The devil says, I will make you the greatest artist of your generation. No, never mind the generation of the century. No, the millennium. Not only the best, but also the most famous and the richest. You will be very influential, and your glory will endure forever. All you have to do is give me your grandmother, your mother, your wife, your kids, and your dog. Absolutely, says the artist. Where do I sign? And then he hesitates. There's the catch. It's true. No one hates artists as much as artists do. Eventually will come the moment when you've only produced one page or perhaps one line all week, and you're sitting there in the dark, feeling like a fraud, and you'll know to the depth of your being that the only way out is through the last sentence. Or worse, the moment you awaken in the middle of the night, and you ask yourself, what have I been up to all this time? But if you stick with it, then after many nights of worry and many days of intense concentration to the point of profuse sweating and many, many forgotten meals, you
will have begun. You may even have made some progress. And then, the middle. The best part, when you're convinced of the work's earth-shaking importance, amused by its slightest jokes, intrigued by its smallest puzzles. At this point, it seems possible that the work just might be a metaphor for everything. Towards the end, of course, it becomes clear that this is not so, and that it's really just about something. At this point, the work will no doubt change, against your will, from an expression of your notions to an epistemological tool. This new place interests you because it's unclear. You tend to it. With attempted humility, you laid out more words, very carefully, watching all the angles. Now the old work looks soft and careless. You erase your tracks, telling yourself that the path is not the work. And usually, the part that you have to jettison is not only the best part, your most profound work, it is also, oddly, the very moment that was to have been the point. It is the key originating thought, the moment in which the rest of it was to hang, and from which you yourself drew courage to continue. But you tell yourself that the path is not the work. The scariest thing that I learned in school, well, the second scariest thing I learned in school was that William Butler Yeats rewrote almost all his poems right up until his death. Now this always seemed to me like a doubling and tripling of work. How would you know when to stop? But the scariest thing I learned in school is that Geoffrey Chaucer disavowed almost all his works on his deathbed. Even, and perhaps principally, the Canterbury Tales. All, he declared, was for naught. It is with the tears of these giants on your shoulders that you will continue to work, knowing that you must be generous. Give all that you have and never count the cost. That all you can do is sit the typewriter and hope in vain. But fear not. You will get a break. You can produce something of substance. It is possible. It's important, of course, to keep in mind all the hundreds, no, thousands of others who are also trying to do so. And, of course, the chances of anyone breaking through their own sloth and limited mind to actually write something that gets out there and matters to people are slim. But the rule of the universe seems to be this. Pick something that you love and do it like a bad habit for 10 years and someone will want a piece of it. The only catch is that sometimes it takes much less than 10 years. And sometimes much, much more. When I heard It's a Hard Rain's Gonna Fall played softly by an accordion quartet over the ceiling speakers at the Springdale shopping mall, I knew there's nothing we can't pluck the stinger from. Nothing we can't turn into a t-shirt or a soft drink flavor. Even Serenity can be something horrible. If you make a commercial about it using smiling white-haired people courting the road, saw retirement homes in the Everglades, where the swamp has been bulldozed and drained to make room for a 19-hole golf course with electrified alligator barriers. I used to think that I was not a part of this. That I could just mind my own business and get along. But that was just another song taught me since birth, whose words I was humming under my breath as I walked through the Springdale Mall. No one needs a new play. No one needs another book. Certainly no one will miss the poetry that's not being written right now. If we all quit tomorrow, few will notice and fewer will worry. I ask you, what is our consolation for no longer mattering to a culture? When I was younger, the realization that I could find company and consolation and hope from an object pulled at random from a bookshelf, from a mere thing, a mess of color on the wall, or from sitting in a room watching people pretend to be other than who they are for 2 hours, it felt akin to a moment of religious grace. This I thought and wrote about as I enjoyed a quiet, isolated life in my big, beautiful apartment. But even as I was consecrating art and its place in the world, I was becoming so depressed that I could do little after dinner but flop down in front of the TV. We didn't have cable, but I'd always find something delicious to watch. And, of course, the more I watched, the worse I felt. After all, if you're an artist and even you're not in the mood for art, how can you expect anyone else to be? what we seem to be up against here is the obsolescence of serious art in general. Imagine for a moment that all of human existence is defined by an ache. The ache of not being each of us the center of our universe, of our desires forever outnumbering our means of satisfying them. If we see religion and art as the historically preferred means of coming to terms with this ache, then what happens when our economic and technological systems and even our commercialized religions become sufficiently sophisticated enough to make each of us the center of our own universe of choices and gratifications? Well, we decide that it's the world that's sick, and that the resistance of refusing to participate in such a world by calling ourselves depressed is healthy. But the invitation to turn your back on your depression, whether through medication or therapy or sheer effort of will, seems like an invitation to turn your back on all your dark insights into corruption and delusion and self-infantilism of the brave new world. And these dark insights are the sole legacy of the social artist who wishes to represent the world not just in its detail, but in its essence, who tries to shine a light into the morally blind eye of the virtual world and believes that humanity deserves more than the future of attractively priced technological penderings that's even now being conspired for it. Instead of saying, I'm depressed, you want to shout, I am right! But as you begin to see yourself as one of the remaining repositories of depressive realism and the radical critique of our therapeutic culture provides, the burden of news bringing placed in your art becomes overwhelming. Why bother, you ask yourself? Why bother to write poetry at all? I can't pretend the mainstream will listen to the news I bring. I can't pretend I'm subverting anything because anyone capable of decoding my subversive messages does not need to hear them. And those that need to hear, not only don't make art, they don't engage with it either. They lack the courage. One very quick road to despair is to refuse to have vivid community experiences. And art is nothing if not a way to have exactly that type of experience. I know there's a reason they love making and experiencing art, but every offense and every apology seems to dissolve the sugar water of contemporary culture until before long it's difficult indeed to get out of bed in the morning, much less put pen to paper. But then being a solipsistic egotist, I turn the questions inward. I point the finger at art and those of us still clinging to its authority. Does what we're doing really matter? Are we writing as big as we need to write? Or are we just spoiled brats sneering at seats, urgently masturbating as we look away from the urgent questions of our age? Are we properly accounting for the wonders of living our time? Are we sufficiently describing the good and the beautiful and the enjoyable? Are we effectively engaged? These questions, of course, lead to inquiries into our own ability to live as maestros in contemporary society. After all, once you start to count the bodies at the foot of the altar of creation, they are numerous. Novelists, poets, short story writers, independent filmmakers, art photographers, pop singers, potters, jazz musicians, rock musicians, classical composer, and most are ludicrously poor. Well, maybe not poor, but certainly broke as hell. So let's boil the money and power question down to its shortest form. Are you for sale? If so, what's the price? Who's buying? Who'll crush you like a soft-shelled crab if you refuse to sell? This is no way to get by! No less than John Updike said that maybe art shouldn't just be a hobby. When I was younger, I wanted a wholly consecrated and completely committed art life. I imagined that every gesture would be an aesthetic expression or response. This got old fast, of course, because life is full of credit card bills, allergies, and tedious commutes, etc., etc. Life is, in large part, rubbish. But the world was ending then, and the world is ending now. I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness. Stark, raving, hysterical, naked, dragging themselves through the negro streets of dawn, looking for an angered fix. Angel-headed hipsters burning with ancient heavenly connections, starry dynamo in the fury of night. The poverty of tattered, cloud-eyed high. Sound smoking in the supernatural darkness of cold water flats, floating over cities, contemplating jazz! Art is not immaculate. It's marked by time and passion, and little of it will survive and endure. And if what does survive, most will only be used as advertising. Life as an idealist of any sort is inevitably disheartening. We try to live as simple creatures, we're very happy. But to be
human, we have to create. And to create, we have to face up to our despair. We are naturally pulled down towards decay. And our struggle to create is the struggle against the weight and slowness of our own demise. What would you write if you knew that you were going to die very soon? What could you say to a dying person that would not enrage with triviality? We have to work with this in mind. There is no time to be merely clever, no time to be simply interesting or entertaining. All good art is moral and that it is imbued with the sense of the world and our very real questions. Love, death, how to live this big and painful life. When I say love, the sound comes out of my mouth and hits the other person's ear, and it travels through the Byzantine conduits in their brain, through their memories of love, the lack of love, and they register what I'm saying. They say, yes, I understand. How do I know that they understand? Because words are just symbols. They're dead, inert, and so much of what we perceive is unspeakable, cannot be described. And yet when we do communicate, when we think that we're understood and we feel that we've connected, I think we have this feeling of almost spiritual communion, and that feeling may be transient, but I think it's what we live for. This is where art comes from. It comes from our desire to transcend our isolation, to have some sort of connection with one another. This is the why bother. Messengers always exist in a triangular situation. The one who sends the message, the one who receives the message, and the message bearer. It's like a triangle, but an incomplete triangle, more like an upside down V. The writer and the reader are the two lateral corners, but there is no line connecting them. There is, however, a third point between them. The work, the poem, the play, the music, whatever you like to call it. It's the only point of connection between the other two. The writer and the reader only communicate through the page. Poetry allows us to imagine in certain arrangements of words and lets us know what it's like to be other people, or what it's like to be ourselves. We feel the pressure of another person on the other side, and it makes you feel less alone, less isolated, less trapped in your body. You feel that you and the author are brothers and that you're working together. It is in this way that art allows us to know what Proust called the intimate composition of those other worlds called individuals, which, without the aid of art, we would never be able to know. Everything matters. Suffering is real. Death is imminent. Art is one part of our ongoing struggle to confront and understand that fact. People say that what we're all seeking is a meaning for life, but I don't think that's it. I think what we're seeking is an experience of being alive, feeling our lives echoed in the eyes and hearts and words of other people. We want to actually feel the rapture of being alive, so that we'll know there's some good in the world. And that is worth fighting for. That is worth talking about. That is worth all of this. And that, finally, is what it's all about. To reveal all lives. To make laughter while weeping. To illuminate the soul of the universe if it has one. To read the forgotten language of the unconscious. To make something out of nothing. To build a world of contemplation and revelation. To praise the mutilated world. To build order out of chaos. To live the life of the imagination. To turn everything sideways and
reveal the unexpected life of the masses, to name the hitherto unnamed, to defend humanity's spirit and integrity, to reveal its honor and beauty, to thumb my nose at death, to show the bastards, to say a new word and make it a thing, to finish the hat, to serve the collective unconscious, to justify the ways of God towards man, to master a craft and subvert the establishment, to experiment with new forms of perception, to search for understanding, to speak for those who cannot speak for themselves, to expose appalling wrongs and atrocities, to build a more conscious and compassionate society, to bear witness and speak for the dead, to allow for the possibility of hope and redemption, to create a forum, a pulpit, a truth teller, to be of consequence, not caution, creation and not compliance, to give back something of what has been given to me, and to change the world in the name of Picasso, Kirsten, Kandinsky, Lenin, Kahlo, Warhol, Whitman, Dylan, Hemingway, Neruda, Stein, Ginsberg, Baldwin, Parker, Gillespie, Fitzgerald, Armstrong, Holliday, Davis, Evans, Coltrane, Mingus, Monk, Joplin, Eliot, Pound, Kerouac, Ferlinghetti, Shakespeare, Olivier, Brando, Dean, Barrymore, Redgrave, Rushdie, Keats, Rakim, Wally, Def, DMC, One, The Rock, Shakur, Smalls, Jay, Rachmaninoff, Ellington, Gay, Hendricks, Marley, Chekhov, Ibsen, Kushner, Fugard, Beckett, Havel, Joyce, Coetzee, Kurtesh, Owe, Mossman, McEwen, Foster Wallace, Barth, Echo, Wilde, Goethe, Crane, Sandberg, Rich, Reed, Kale, Burr, Eno, Grimes, Ramon, Waits, Strummer, Cobain, Kuti, Mitchell, Nicolini, Lerner, Levy, Baraka, Motherswell, Still, Pollock, Mayweather, Marquez, Cassidy, Burroughs, Estep, Scott Heron, Bruce Hicks, Pryor, Pinheiro, Nabokov, Sim, Ellison, Bamuthi, Bangs, Copeland, Bernstein, Wagner, Gould, Cage, Mahler, Elling, Sondheim, Redding, Simone, Vaughn, Cook, Wonder, Charles, Jagger, Richards, Rauschenberg, Da Vinci, Mucha, Monet, Manet, Seurat, Basquiat, Banksy, Witowski, Meisner, Boal, Bogart, Brooke, Lapage, Graham, Balanchine, Robbins, Ailey, DeMille, Cunningham, Oida, Foreman, Shaken, Winterson, Pinero, Wolfe, Cervantes, Murakami, Ishiguro, Kurosawa, Fellini, Truffaut, Godard, Eisenstein, Wells, Gilliam, Herzog, Bergman, Buñuel, Almodovar, Kobayashi, Rumi, Marlowe, Austin, Flaubert, Kafka, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Pushkin, Sontag, Carver, Conroy, Pessoa, Proust, Rimbaud, Blake, Szymborska, Donne, Wordsworth, Shelley, Dickinson, Yeats, Platt, in the name of those who burn and those still aflame, and the countless unnamed, reject mediocrity, cast them firmly behind you, reinvent the wheel, shake hands with the hurricane, race with the wind, for God's sake, add something to the plus side of the equation. I prefer keeping a needle and a thread on hand just in case. I prefer not to maintain that reason is to blame for everything. I prefer conquering countries. I prefer not to ask when and how much longer, and keep in mind even the possibility that existence has its own reasons for being. I prefer the absurdity of writing poetry than the absurdity of not writing poetry. We are here because it is our intention as artists to add some total of joy and brotherhood in the room, to give expression to the human condition. We are determining the future at this very moment. We claim the present as the present, as the hereafter. We are unraveling our nables so that we may ingest the sun. We do not fear the darkness. We trust that the moon shall guide us. For where darkness grows, the deliverer too grows strong. We enlist every instrument, acoustic and electronic. Our music is our alchemy. You must count to keep the beat, then count. Curve your circles counterclockwise. Use your cipher to decipher coded language and man-made laws. Find waterfalls and trees. Let your children claim themselves and name themselves as the new day. For today, we are determined to challenge these changing frequencies into songs, painting, writing, dance, drama, photography, carpentry, crafts, love, and love. We enlist every so-called race, gender, and sexual preference, every person as beings of sound to acknowledge their responsibility to uplift the consciousness of the entire fucking world. If it can be broken, it can be fixed. If it can be fused, it can be split. If it can be lost, then it must be won. And if it can be touched, then it will be turned. We will not be the last. 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 We will not be the last.